What's good, YouTube? Welcome back, kinda, to another reaction. I pre-recorded, or not pre-recorded, but I recorded the reaction, right? Just to find out that OBS was dropping my mic for some reason. Like, my mic wasn't muted. OBS was dropping my mic. And that's why the like is already pre-fired. I'm already subbed. But as you can see, the video don't have the little red bar up there because, like, we literally just rewinded in real time. So as far as YouTube is concerned, until, like, I refresh or something, I'm at the beginning of the video. As always, make sure y'all subscribe. You hit that bell. You'll turn notifications on. You know what I'm saying? Both on YouTube and on Twitch. Now that we hit affiliate and can have subs, shout out to those of y'all in the Discord server. Join the Discord server down in the description below if you want to be notified every time I post a YouTube video, which is twice daily, and every time I go live. Make sure y'all boys drink out some water. I think I just finished this one. I finished that mid reaction, by the way, the one that got dropped. So I've like seen half of this video, but I really want to post it because it's Thai. So bear with me if I'm like less commentative, because I can't really remember all the jokes that I got off, and it's like I'm not gonna like remember it and then be cringe with it. You feel me? His hairline's cooked. I didn't notice that the first reaction. Oh, we're gonna get straight into it though.
After
Man, shout
breaking
out
down the
Ty.
Kizaru problem and how the constant need for holding
Dang,
back
bro.
really does make it hard to push the Kizaru agenda, today we will be taking a look at a different admiral and going over what I believe to be the funniest One Piece
Shout out
agenda that
Kizaru.
is
Shout
currently
out
going on.
Aokiji, bro.
That being, of course, the Aokiji agenda, or the Aokiji is so much
Oh,
faster and freezes his opponent agenda. Aokiji has always been one of my goats, so I'm excited to break
my
down not
goat,
only
man.
Aokiji's time throughout the story,
He
but also
real chill with it. You know what I'm saying? He real cold. My fault.
break down his scaling and see if this agenda of his is truly real. Done. Going up much higher, so high. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh. Oh. Now, I'll first mention here what I briefly touched on in my Kizaru video, that being, of
Funniest part, the context to that meme is actually terrible, man.
course, how the
Like,
admirals all
let's put
represent
it.
a sense of justice. Originally, I said how Aokiji tries to push what's beneficial to the people.
Thought about this in the first reaction. I'm gonna talk about it really quickly. Now I can kind of summarize it. Which I guess you kind of consider this me having a script. But I like that detail on the heel. Extra ice there. But I was talking about how their devil fruits portray their type of justice. Magma is slow because it's kind of like earth, but it's fiery and volatile like fire. And I was talking about how Akainu's justice is very strict, chokehold, fiery, fierce. I'll kill someone if I need to. In One Piece, you know what I'm saying? But he's also very stubborn because magma's slow to move, and if you've ever tried to move magma, man, good luck, right? It's pretty heavy too. The type of justice he wills is heavy because, like, in his mind, thinks he's the good guy when he be having to like pack people up, and that's actually hard. Um, and then Kizaru, I was saying like he's lazy, but light is like as a fruit, light as an ability, right? It is very like straightforward. So because he's lazy, he's very prone to cut corners. His justice is the one that yields the quickest results. Someone tells him to do something, he'll do it. But the thing about light is, if you have a mirror or a special principle, a special type of thing, you can kind of deflect the justice and have it do like good things. And then we're talking about how Kuzan, his justice is like very cold and calculated, right? But he's also just as lazy. So his justice is quite literally chill, right? Pun intended. And like to add an extra layer to it, it's like he believes that he doesn't need to have his hands on justice, and justice only needs to be like the last resort type situation. He live people to their devices, and then when you need me, I'm there. Kind of like how ice is a chill thing, but also it changes states of matter relatively quickly compared to some other things. So it's kind of like how he's fluid like water in a way, but where he needs to be there, he's there. You feel me?
But I was actually wrong about that. Aokiji's justice is more laid back in a sense, where he doesn't think enforcing justice is necessary and is only enforced with minimum effort. Which is why Aokiji seems so nonchalant even in comparison to Kizaru, who is the nonchalant admiral. Like, bro, he's just so chill. See what I did there? Because, like, yeah. Anywho, it's said Aokiji can freeze the very ocean itself with his ice, as we then see him destroy. Anywho, it's said, like, bro, he's just so chill. See what I did there? Because, like,
okay, yeah, 'cause that's Yamato. Oh, they're showing everybody who can freeze stuff. Yamato. I think that's Yamato. Brooke.
Yeah. Anywho, it's said Aokiji can freeze the very ocean itself
Like,
with
that
his
has to be
ice,
like a
as we then see him destroy our
newer
protagonist in 10 seconds flat, along with freezing the majority of a sea while taking out a sea beast, which,
country
fun
level.
fact, had enough potency to wipe out countries just based on the range alone.
Yeah,
Now, Aokiji
tectonic
was able to
plates
do
are
this with,
crazy
of
too.
course, the high fruit, or the
He
freezing
ain't no
fruit, which
me.
is a Logia-type devil fruit that allows the user to transform himself or anything he touches into ice, inflicting both physical and freezing damage in his attacks. Even if his body were to break, he can regenerate and reform himself, as well as he is literally
Chat, what if like I put like salt and ice on my hand?
ice
I
itself,
remember that
and he
challenge.
has at least access to both advanced
Put
armament and
like burner
advanced
film.
observation confirmed in Marineford, and potentially advanced conqueror shown in the Garp fight, but that's a little bit more contentious. We know that observation and armament are definitely
Something I talked about later on that I will talk about now real quick is I don't question the writer of One Piece for how peak it was. I don't question Oda, but a lot of the stuff that Garp does, I low key think it'd be interesting to see how the story went if he wasn't like he technically taught this his brand of justice. Garp is a laid back. He let Luffy go, so it's like if he just stood by his people a little more and wasn't worried about his reputation as much and what he could do as like a sword member, which goes against his character. Like he could have helped Ace. And at least I get how Ace kind of went against his morals, but at least in this Kuzan situation, low key kind of be like, "Yo, they stole my man's though. You gonna give him back? Yeah, do me a favor as your teacher." And then got him safe first, then ran his fate or something.
things he has access to, though. As we know, Luffy would go on to free Robin, and she'd manage to find herself in a good position, which leads into Aokiji, who originally wanted to eliminate her, letting her go as he recognized what she dealt with past Ohara. And he also did it out of respect for Saul, who he may or may not have let live, which is a pretty cool detail to keep in
One of
mind.
the greatest laughs of all time. They got da she.
I honestly think that he probably didn't do it on purpose, as he did go after Robin anyway, but he stopped after seeing what she managed to build for herself. Aokiji after this wouldn't be seen until Marineford, where of course he's the first admiral to step in when Whitebeard invades Marineford. After Bro proceeds to shift a tectonic plate and tries to use tsunamis against Marineford, Aokiji would intercept and freeze the water
tiniest bit of ice, and then he can use that to generate so
almost
much
instantaneously. Whitebeard would then use his fruit to crack Aokiji, which would ultimately do nothing as he can just reform his body, leading into Whitebeard throwing a huge vibration attack on Marineford, which the admirals managed to intercept with potentially advanced armament. And after getting the chance to stab Luffy, he would just get kicked by Marco, which would do absolutely nothing. And after this, he would then engage in a one-on-one with Whitebeard almost immediately. He would proceed to outspeed and freeze Whitebeard before he could attack, but due to Whitebeard having vibrations or the Gura fruit, his ice wouldn't be able to withhold him. Whitebeard then tries to stab him with Haki, which leads into Aokiji pulling a Katakuri and forming around his attack, which does give us the indication that he has access to advanced observation. But of course, Jozu would then come in and save Whitebeard, catching Aokiji off guard, which really wouldn't do anything besides draw a little blood on him before Aokiji would just almost effective immediately freeze him. Like how Aokiji only steps in when necessary, throughout Marineford, Aokiji only engaged in a fight with the strongest dude in the room, and he didn't even lose this encounter despite Whitebeard having the advantage with his devil fruit, along with the fact that the admirals are all holding back because they don't want to destroy Marineford. You see, after this fight, Akainu and Aokiji literally go all out, and the result of this leaves the island looking like Todoroki. This would have been the result of Marineford had these admirals went all out, so it's clear that they're clearly holding back in the fight with Whitebeard. In this fight with Akainu and Aokiji, it's implied that they went blow for blow, but Aokiji would ultimately lose. Now, a lot of people debate on whether
I go crazy, bro. They fought for 10 days, almost 2 full weeks, bro.
whether or not they got stronger here, as when two people are fighting for a long time, their Haki could bloom. I'm not sure if they necessarily got exponential.
Another thing, too, is for them to fight that long, there's only 2 arguments that can be made. They have, like, superhuman levels of stamina, or they were holding, like, they were pacing themselves and holding back. And if that's what happened to Punk Hazard off, it's holding back,
stronger like how
You know
Luffy
what I'm
did
saying?
against Katakuri. But it is something to keep in mind because Akainu and Aokiji did fight for 10 days, which as far as we know is probably the longest period between two characters just
Longer
having a
than One
fight.
Piece,
Like the
period.
Yonkos be fighting for a few days or whatever, but these two
Yeah.
went on to fight for almost 2 weeks. I do think regardless though, post time skip Aokiji and Akainu are superior to their pre-time skip selves. And of course,
What do you
after
think One
Aokiji
Piece
takes this
get?
fat L, he would leave the Marines and would just pretty much be solo until Blackbeard would eventually find him, where it seems like Blackbeard really didn't want the smoke with
You know that
Aokiji
nigga
at
don't want
all,
smoke.
despite him threatening them. It's pretty obvious that Blackbeard during this encounter wanted to recruit him, and I don't think it's ridiculous to say aside from Blackbeard, Aokiji would just solo the crew, which
Send on
is
his
why
cape
Blackbeard
again,
was
bro.
probably scared because he did not want his crew members to get killed. When these two do get in each other's faces, Teach is implied to be a little scared, but he would have been down to fight regardless since he has the advantage with his devil fruits. I mean, think about it. Not only does he have the Gura Gura, which as we saw in Marineford was a hard counter to his ice powers, but he can also use the darkness fruit.
I get that it's a counter, but what I'm saying though is Ace and Kuzan symbolize two different things. Ace is like this outgoing, flames of the next generation type of character, because he doesn't want to carry the burden and the sins that come like being the son, right? The son of, you know what I'm saying, Roger. So he wants to make his own path, which is why he joins Whitebeard. And even then, he wants to beat Whitebeard. And then he's a fleet commander who's like has a commanding presence that like has his people trusting him. He is like this outward going. He's fitting of the fire, the flame fruit, to say the least, right? And his powers emit heat and are projectile based. He's throwing fire, which you can easily catch as Blackbeard. And then also apparently once you're near his darkness, your devil fruit is like kind of like nerfed a little bit. It's limited. Like your ability, I think his powers is kind of like Sea Stone, to my knowledge. Like if he touches you with the darkness activated, it becomes harder to use your fruit. Like from then on. To be fair though, Aokiji's a hockey man, so unless that joint drains mad stamina period as a devil fruit user, then he's catching the meanest uppercut with game advanced conquer. I mean, yeah, you could potentially have advanced conquerors, but at least advanced armament hockey, man. Hitting that in his chin. The worst part about Blackbeard's over 2 is it makes him take more damage if you ain't remember. So like fighting someone like Aokiji who can put out crazy damage is not fair. Like this was getting work put on him by Boa Hancock, bro. He's not boxing with Aokiji. He's not guarding shit. I think he was afraid of Rayleigh too. I mean Rayleigh's him. It's not say that like that's a downscale or anything. But yeah, him and Kuzan are completely different in terms of where they fight. So I don't know how much the darkness fruit would help him, the Yami Yami, but the Gura Gura can like at least kind of negate the
Which
ice,
just
the
negates
vibration,
Aokiji's fruits
if
entirely.
he
Now,
tries to
of
freeze
course,
him.
weaker Marines like Sengoku were able to draw blood on Teach fresh after obtaining the Gura Gura, and Blackbeard after Marineford was just terrified of even engaging with Akainu by this point, meaning Aokiji, who
Kind of
can
got
fight
motion,
Akainu,
boy.
should be
I hate
relative of
that
this
for them.
caliber. However, I think a simple explanation
Sakatsuki.
for this would just be that Blackbeard got stronger throughout the 2 years and
He's
actually
drunk.
mastered his
Black.
powers, which is why he didn't want to fight
My
Shanks
fault.
and Akainu, along with the fact that he had different reasons for not wanting to fight Aokiji. Aokiji is more so looking like Blackbeard's Zoro, if anything. And no, Shiryu, just because he has one statement that gets contradicted and he off-guards Garp. And before anybody even tries to comment this, no, Shiryu is not stronger than
Nowhere near
Aokiji and is not the
Aokiji.
second strongest Blackbeard captain. The only thing Shiryu accomplished against Garp was getting off-guarded and he just got slammed into the ground by Garp. Kuzan clearly did better against Garp regardless of what you guys think of the
He was trained by
context,
him,
so
bro.
Kuzan without a doubt is definitely the number 2 on the crew, and is the only
For sure.
person on that crew who can even hold a candle to their captain. And a lot of you may be wondering how
To call someone a number 2 and put them like close to that Zoro position, they have to be able to either injure or kill their captain. Not be grimy enough to do it. We know Zoro's loyalty is like his greatest trait. You feel me? But earlier on in the show, you can make the argument that he could have beat Luffy. Only reason you can't really is Luffy was boxing like the captain tiers. He was boxing the right hand tiers, and they both were coming out like this. But every opponent Zoro fought pretty much was like if Luffy fought him, he'd be at a disadvantage. It was bad matchups for Luffy. And then Zoro in itself is a bad matchup for Luffy earlier on because he can just cut him because he's rubber. You feel me?
Someone like Aokiji with his own brand of justice ended up as a Yonko subordinate, but it's kind of deeper than that in my opinion. You see, after the loss with Akainu, he himself was trying to push his perspective of justice. After that loss with Akainu and him attempting to try to push his perspective of justice, Aokiji really couldn't just stay and try to clash heads with Akainu. So instead, he decided to join someone who's not only a powerful force, but also an unpredictable one. Depending on what Blackbeard really is trying to discover, other than the One Piece obviously, Aokiji may actually stick it out with the Blackbeard pirates to discover, other than the
Blackbeard's most least flattering angle, because he's mad tall. They make this nigga built like the penguin off of Power World, bro. It's built like Snorlax from this angle, bro. Why does he be like he beats his son, bro? He goes home and just abuses that in One Piece. But like, Chad, look, why does he have no neck?
One Piece obviously, Aokiji may actually stick it out with the Blackbeard pirates to the very end. But of course, it's just as likely that Aokiji may be keeping an eye on Teach or even working with Sword, planning an inevitable betrayal on the Blackbeard pirates. However, these are just theories at the moment, but it really does go to show you the amount of layers this chill guy has, no pun intended. While he may appear as a nonchalant, funny dude who tries to play with some bazingas, deep down he's a man with a sense of morale that has been pretty much sent into a pit of magma only to now be a mere shell of his former self. Also, fun fact by the way, Aokiji blitzes and is much faster than Dofi and Cracker and proceeds to freeze them, which means in character he goes to blitz and freeze his opponents. I also love the interaction between him and Smoker and seeing that he still has a different view on justice, but he's just going about action between him
nastiest things of all time. Why doesn't he got the tat on his buck teeth?
Smoker, and seeing that he still has a different view on justice, but he's just going about it in a different way. And this is all too obvious to us or the viewer when Garp arrives onto Blackbeard's island to try and save Kobe. After Garp already dished out some hockey utilizing Galaxy Impact and destroying the majority of the island, he would waste a lot of his stamina fighting fodder Blackbeard goons and even taking a stab wound in the process. Now, after all of this, Aokiji would manage to combat Garp while clearly not being in the right headspace, since not only is Garp the one man who taught him his sense of justice and made him the Marine he once was, but Garp was also the one who even trained Kuzan, and now Kuzan is an enemy of the Marines. By the way, we see during this training as well, Kuzan was able to grow accustomed to this training pretty easily, keeping up with the likes of even a younger Garp before his Admiral days. Kuzan may be stronger and Garp might be weaker than what he used to be and weaken in this fight, but Kuzan is put in a similar position to Kizaru and Egghead where he has to kill somebody who's close to him. These factors allowed these two to just
crazy impact frames. This Garp was literally moving like Whitebeard the way he got injured and still was like throwing hands. Like before the fight started, he had a stab wound.
Go all out and go blow for blow. However, a lot of people would like to argue Garp definitely was in an advantageous position, and had he not been weakened prior and Aokiji and him just fought blow for blow position, and had he not been,
they both are. Hold on, this is an aura off.
People would like to argue Garp definitely was in an advantageous position.
Glasses. He's using his hockey to make his cape flare,
and had he not,
he's using his ice and aura to make his cape flare. They're in the aura off right now.
Not been weakened prior, and Aokiji and him just fought blow for blow, Garp probably would have had the slight edge under normal conditions. Regardless though, Aokiji is not that far behind Garp if you think he is weaker than him, but he's still somebody in the series who has yet to go all out. This guy is probably the anomaly of One Piece, as he's technically a Yonko commander by role, but this man has unironically scaling that puts him above some of the Yonkos himself. Due to seeing how Kizaru performed against Gear 5, I believe Aokiji would have a much better time against Luffy due to being a lot stronger in comparison to his Marine Force self, while Kizaru probably didn't grow all that much. Aokiji fought Akainu for days on end, and he even clashed with the likes of Old Garp, who could blitz the same Marco who could react to Kizaru. And Akainu, the same guy Aokiji was going blow for blow with, could just finesse and weave Marco's blows. Aokiji, in my opinion, would be closer to somebody like maybe Kaido, who honestly I believe can't definitively beat Aokiji. This matchup is super contentious and there are a lot of factors depending on certain things, but we do have a statement comparing Kaido and Big Mom to the three admirals back in Marineford. And although this version of Kaido that they're mentioning or promoting about wasn't going all out on Rooftop, Aokiji was also holding back in Marineford, along with also getting significantly stronger throughout the time skip. Aokiji would be able to definitely slow
And he has the
Kaido
high
down and
critical
land some
arm.
decent
He was
blows, but I'm
dodging
just
regardless.
unsure if he can put him down since they both have ridiculous levels of stamina. Kaido may have ridiculous endurance, but if Aokiji just keeps consistently freezing him and then damaging those freeze parts of Kaido, that endurance / durability wouldn't really be too much of a factor for him. For now though, this is where I'll leave this video off. Just let me know down in the comments who you guys think wins between Aokiji and Kaido.
That boy majestic.
And remember, Aokiji is much faster. It can freeze anybody who is not the painted swordsman.
Come on, chat. That's Mihawk upscale. Hey, wait. This might be a Mihawk upscale in itself. Hear me out. The greatest Mihawk downscale in history happened when you take account the line, the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. If he actually paints his black blade, you feel me? That'd make him like an artist of sorts. And a swordsman. Mihawk upscale of infinity.
Of One Piece. And, well, the guy who Aokiji wasn't much faster and could freeze him. Anywho, he's by far one of the best written characters within One Piece, and he can definitely beat Goku. Okay, goodbye.
Sure.
Best written characters within One Piece, and he can definitely beat Goku. Okay, goodbye.
Look at this panel right here. Might be thumbnail. That shit kind of hard. Once again, shout out to the dog Ty Learn. This was the Aokiji agenda. Unfortunately, it's kind of like, it is not my first reaction because I watched some of it, but I just got to shout out Ty. I got to post this. I mess with One Piece heavy too. It's about my goat. What do you want from me? But, you know what I'm saying? See if I come up with something on the fly. You know, you gotta dream of a world that's inspired by dreams, because in actuality, you are far stronger than you think you are, and those dreams are what inspire us and create our hopes to allow us to tap into that unseen strength. Remember that. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Superman. I think he said something along those lines. Yeah, I know what time to find me tomorrow though. Peace.